Welcome to the Explainer. So when a terrible helicopter crash happened in Ghana, what unfolded in the aftermath? Well, it pointed to a problem that's much, much deeper than just one tragic event. Today, we're going to dig into an analysis by Bright Simons, and he's got this incredible theory called katanomics. It really helps explain why critical systems can just fall apart right when we need them the most.
So the day was August 6th, 2025, and the news was just devastating. A helicopter goes down, and on board are top government officials. The entire nation of Ghana was thrown into mourning. But here's where things get really strange. At the actual crash site, what was happening was, well, it was deeply alarming. You had this scene that just descended into total chaos. We're talking untrained locals, officials, all combing through the wreckage, and they had no proper equipment, no real procedure, just chaos.
I mean, the failure of procedure was total. The site wasn't secured at all. There was no access control. You had first responders showing up completely ill-equipped for the job. And maybe worst of all, crucial evidence, pieces of the wreckage, was literally being carried away by onlookers. And all of this was being streamed on social media, which, raised a massive question.
So you see that and you think, okay, the obvious answer here is that Ghana just doesn't have the right rules for a disaster like this, right? It seems logical. But here's the thing. According to analyst Bright Simons, that simple, logical answer, it's just plain wrong.
Actually, it's the complete opposite. What Bright Simons points out is that there was already a super comprehensive framework of rules and regulations on the books. They were already in place.
Just look at this. Ghana has adopted global standards from big organizations like the ICAO. They have their own national laws based on international search and rescue manuals. They even have a whole dedicated bureau just for accident investigations and formal agreements for how the military and civilian groups are supposed to coordinate. So the problem, very clearly, is not a lack of rules on paper.
And that just makes the mystery even deeper, doesn't it? If the playbook exists, why did it seem like absolutely no one was reading from it on August 6th? The answer, it turns out, isn't about missing documents. It's about missing action.
To really get why, we've got to look back. Simon's analysis shows that this wasn't just some one-off failure. Nope. This is part of a pattern of inaction, of stagnation, that goes back for decades.
Okay, this timeline really tells the story. You go back to the year 2000 and a search and rescue organization exists, but everyone knows it's got problems. Fast forward to 2018, Navy strategists are literally warning that collaboration between agencies is poor. Then in 2021, at a major workshop, Ghana makes promises, covenants, to get these committees and procedures in place. And then, 2025, the crash happens, and it reveals that the exact same problems they were talking about 25 years earlier are still there.
I mean, just let that sink in. Over 25 years, for more than a quarter of a century, Ghana has been discussing the exact same systemic issues. It's a shocking failure of what you might call national learning.
So this really is the absolute core of the puzzle, right? Why is it so incredibly difficult for plans to become action? What is this invisible force that's causing this kind of paralysis, letting problems fester for decades?
Well, according to Bright Simons, the answer lies in a theory he calls katanomics. He's proposed this framework to explain this exact kind of paralysis. It's basically designed to diagnose why there's so often this huge gaping chasm between saying you'll do something and then actually, doing it.
So at its heart, katanomics is all about a fundamental tension. It's about the gap between the big things we say we want politically and all the detailed, nitty-gritty technical work that's required to actually make it happen.
And this slide really breaks down that core tension. On one side, you've got politics. That's all about the what. These are the big, popular goals. We must improve aviation safety. Everyone can get behind that. But on the other side, you've got policy. And that's all about the how. This is the complex, technical, kind of unglamorous work of implementation, which, let's be honest, very few people are watching closely.
And right there, that's the problem. When nobody is watching the how, the stamina to actually get the policy done just collapses. Because there's no big, loud group of people demanding accountability for the technical details, the momentum to implement the plans just fizzles out. The political will to announce the goal is there, sure, but the policy stamina to see it all the way through, it's gone.
And this is exactly what that breakdown looks like in the real world. The official plan, the ideal, it was crystal clear. But the reality on August 6th was, it was a chaotic free-for-all. And that's a direct result of this long-term failure to build the how.
So, this brings us right back to that crash site. The chaos we saw wasn't because there were no plans. It was because of a decades-long failure to build and sustain the actual systems needed to execute those plans. It is a textbook case of katanomics in action.
And this is what gets lost in that big gap between politics and policy. This is the how. It's the boring but absolutely crucial work of running drills, having standard operating procedures, making sure everyone has the right equipment. This is the stuff that actually saves lives when a crisis hits.
So, okay, what's the solution? How do you build that all-important policy stamina? Simons argues there's really only one way forward. Citizens have to be the ones to close that accountability gap themselves.
And what that means is you need a dedicated group of people, could be journalists, experts, advocates, who are willing to follow the technical issues closely. Their job is to keep the pressure on, to make the implementation itself a political issue. It's really about forcing officials to pay attention to the boring but vital details that really matter.
And that leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought, doesn't it? This isn't just about aviation safety in Ghana. This whole dynamic of katanomics, this gap between the promise and the reality, it could be at play in countless other areas, in countries all over the world. So the question is, what other vital systems are we all just assuming are in place, just waiting for a crisis to reveal that, well, they're not?